Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're doing a book review for a book called Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. It is an attempt at a Western, kind of going on with this theme. I say theme, but I haven't posted the video for Lucky Red yet. That's coming. In the next couple of weeks, that's coming. But I'm doing a couple of Westerns recently. Got some new Westerns. Also, a cold dish is on my horizon for more recommended Westerns because of the story that I'm working on with Monty. So, you know, we're seeing what's out there. Well, I'm seeing what's out there. And, like, I'm taking recommendations and I'm reading what people are doing modernly, and it's not looking great. It's not looking promising. Also, this book popped up on my Goodreads and I was like, why do these Westerns that are currently written, that are contemporarily written, feel like they're all about insulting the Western genre? Look, if you don't like the Western genre, don't write in it. But some of them very specifically feel like they are written to denigrate and hate on the Western genre and everything that it stands for. And that's why it even is called Upright Women Wanted, because it's pretending that there weren't upright women in traditional Westerns. Before we get into, and you know, we got 2 books left. I'm slowly rolling out the final 2 book reviews for the ALA's banned books list. They're coming. Perks of Being a Wallflower is coming. I even watched the movie to compare it, and oh boy, that is a mess. But today we're doing Upright Women Wanted. But before we get started, number 1, if you enjoy what I do here on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number 2, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number 1 way to be featured is through Lamoy, the monthly prompt writing contest where I give you a prompt. You write a short story for the prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in the creativity of everybody here, well, of the prompt responders that we read, because you all are a creative bunch of mistakes. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out or a harem of books. If you submit your first chapter and your cover page to the channel, to the Fresh Meat feature, they will be read here at a random order because I randomly pick what I'm going to read, and hopefully that'll help more readers find your work to go and pick up the rest of it. Third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they are linked in the description below. You can get them anywhere you get books, including your local libraries if you request them there. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy. With that said, let's look at Upright Women Wanted. So why am I doing this? Because apparently I like cursed books where authors hate the genre that they've decided to write. Also, because I wanted to see the level of self-insert portrayed in this book, where there are more martyrdom librarian fantasies in Western with no Western setting because the author apparently hates the genre. Like, reading the book, it feels like the author genuinely hates the genre. And I don't know if the author does hate the genre. I don't want to make claims about the author for the book, but in me reading it, I did not feel any affection for the genre or that they even wanted to be there. Spoiler alert, this book is about lesbian anti-fascist librarians, so it has a little bit of that persecution complex that we see going on in the ALA books, which is one of the reasons I also picked this up, because I saw anti-fascist lesbian librarians and I was like, oh no. This book was also published by Tor. And I'm on a quest to prove that traditional publishing does not promise or mean quality. That is such a misnomer. That is such a stereotype or cliche these days that you literally lose nothing by not just reading traditionally published books, because let me show you what they're doing. And you know, that's not to say there aren't great traditionally published books, but it's just to say that all indie are not garbage and all traditionally published books are not just by default higher quality. So let's get into this. I'd love to know your thoughts as we go. Chapter 1 opens with Esther hiding in the back of a librarian's wagon after she's escaped from her father. Her best friend, Beatriz, has been hanged for being discovered as a lesbian, and Esther had to run. She's discovered a couple of days outside of Valor, Arizona, and the head librarian holds a gun to her, demanding to know who she is. She explains who she is, hoping that it'll help, but it really doesn't. She's a stowaway and a danger. The interaction is interrupted by someone else from the caravan needing help. Esther's dad doesn't know where she is, but the head librarian, named Bet, decides to spare Esther because of this other person that is in the caravan that says, please don't be mean to Esther. Esther's stuck on why the librarian even has a revolver and not a rifle. Quote, she couldn't think of why a head librarian would need to carry a revolver instead of a rifle. A rifle would do just fine for whatever might be in the desert, whatever might come across the horizon to make a woman nervous. A revolver was too up close for a woman to carry, her father always said. A revolver was a man's weapon, made to end an argument. A librarian, Esther thought, shouldn't even have need of arguing. This was the whole point. Look, I can understand enough that Esther is probably like really naive, and her father probably raised her in a certain way, to think a certain way, to like make her more vulnerable. But also, that feels like such a stretch for a character living in a Western to be like, but why would a woman have a revolver and not a rifle? I don't know, because revolvers are smaller and they're easier to carry, and you could take them into town easier than having a rifle on your back. And it, like, not that you can't take a rifle on your back. Hello, Arthur. But it's easier to just whip out your pistol. And is it saying, is this trying to imply like there are no bandits on the road that might attack them, that might get up close? There's literally no reason why a woman might want a firearm to attack anything other than prairie dogs. Again, Esther might be that naive, but I'm just gonna say, you know, Marcella's dad is a gun manufacturer, my Marcella. And she's not so stupid to think that she doesn't need some kind of gun, because her dad has been attacked. She's been attacked in the carriage with her father before because people tried to rob him. She's not dumb, but she is sheltered. She's just not like this. So I just assume that this is Esther's dad overcompensating, but it seems insane to me. Anyway, the other woman in the caravan is named Lita, and she tells Esther not to lie to Bet, or you'll really get no kindness from her. Esther's concerned, but is sure that if she behaves, then she should be able to become a librarian. And this is the first time that we hear that she wants to become a librarian. I feel like that should have been made more obvious earlier on. But also, being a librarian is supposed to be, like, somewhat of a coveted job, because you're the one that is spreading information to the populations. But she just ran away from everything, and we don't know what kind of training she has, or what kind of training you're supposed to have, or what is expected, or why she thinks she's going to be a librarian with these people. Like, it happens so fast. And I get that this is a novella, but it doesn't do anything to establish what librarian is, or how that is something that Esther wants, because she's just hiding in this thing and then discovered, and then suddenly, oh, they're librarians, I want to be a librarian. That's where we are. Skip forward, and Esther is sitting with Bet and Lita, saying, quote, I've always wanted to be a librarian, she said, looking Bet in the face, making her eyes wide and earnest the way that she did whenever she talked to the superintendent about the importance of the flag and the troops and the border. Her long hair was matted with sweat in spite of the tight braid that she bound it in before climbing into the back of the wagon, and she felt like something had gotten stuck in the tread of a tank. But none of that would matter if she could make herself shine with earnest dedication to the cause. Ever since I was a little girl, I dreamed of joining an honorable brigade of morally upright women doing rewarding work, supporting a bright future for the nation's children. Bet finished flatly. You memorize the posters. I hate those things, Lita muttered, and Bet shot her a sharp look. Of course I memorize them, Esther said. If she didn't blink for long enough, she could get her eyes to water a little so that they'd look like she was overcome with passion for the librarian's work. She clasped her hands together in front of her and let her shoulders rise. I had one of the recruitment posters hung over my bed since I was a little girl. I love everything about the librarians. At this point, I'm not entirely sure that she's not just lying, because she's talking about being able to lie just to make it more believable, but also she's laying it on super thick. She keeps going on about how it's important to have librarians so kids stay out of trouble, and she's almost crying. Bet calls her out on lying, and so she tells the women that her dad was trying to marry her off to a man that she didn't love. She left out the part about her being a lesbian, believing that she'd never be able to become a librarian if they knew, because, quote, they were some of the most dedicated civil servants on the state payroll, end quote. She says that her friend had unapproved materials that she brought from Utah, clearly banned books. Clearly, you know the ones. Esther says she never got to see the books or ask what they were about before Beatriz was executed. Bet is like, so your friend died? It happens. Get better friends, kid. Obviously, this angers Esther, and she yells at Bet before cutting herself off and saying that she should have been more careful and knows better. She thinks about how this fate was brought onto her by her and Beatrice being lesbians, and she tried to stop it by saying that she didn't love Beatrice anymore, but it wasn't enough. She had so many feelings. For some reason, she thinks that joining the Librarians is the way to get better from her affliction. Why? How? Maybe it's the civil servitude that she thinks is going to cure it. Have we tried that form of conversion therapy? Fortunately, Bet tells us why. Quote, "I think I understand. You wanted to come and join the Librarians because we're chaste and morally upright, and we're loyal to the state no matter what, and because we don't give in to the deviant urges. You wanted to come and join us because you wanted to learn how to be like us. Do I have that right?" Esther confirms. Apparently, the idea here is basically that librarians are nuns and or like governesses, where it's just unmarried women. Bet laughs at this before reaching for Lita's hand and lacing their fingers together, breaking the news. Quote, "Bet shook her head, then turned away from Esther, her chest hitching. When she turned back, a small, rueful smile was breaking through the grim line of her mouth. She laughed, a laugh that she was so obviously trying hard but failing to suppress. She reached a hand out to one side, and for one awful moment, Esther was sure that she was waiting for Lita to hand over her revolver, but then, instead of a gun, Lita put her palm over Bet's, and their fingers laced together. "Well, Esther," Bet said, that irrepressible laugh trying hard to shake her laugh, her thumb tracing the back of Lita's. "Well, I've got good news for you and bad news." We're then introduced to the third librarian in this group named Sai, who is rougher and wants nothing to do with Esther, but gets stuck with her as a partner. Bet says that they're bringing her to where they're going to go, and then they'll drop her off there. But they aren't stopping what they're doing right now to do anything with her. Bet also informs her that they're going to Utah, and Esther is like, "What? Utah? An insurrection state?" Because Utah, Florida, and Maine are all listed as insurrectionist strongholds where the rule of law doesn't matter. We never really learn what that means. There is basically no world building in this. So good luck with that. And why Utah? I don't know. Esther thinks about how brave she's being running away. Since Sai is stuck with Esther, she's letting her know the rules, which include you will listen to Bet, and also she is a they on the road, but a she in town. Respect the pronouns, bigot. Sai immediately comes off as egotistical, lecturing Esther aggressively about her pronouns in this bigoted world. Quote, "Did you ever meet anyone who used they instead of she or he, or did you only read about that in stories?" Sai paused, and not long enough for Esther to reply. "That's what I thought. It's not safe to be a they in town, no more than it's safe for Better Lita to be anything but librarians who happen to ride together. When there's people around we don't trust, we let them think that we're the kinds of people who are allowed to exist, and the only kinds of librarians that are allowed to exist is the ones who answer to she." If you think that this is going to come up in the story as a plot element, like, Esther calling Sai a they in front of people and then, something happening, no. There is literally no purpose to this choice except to lecture Esther on how difficult it is to be a lesbian and a they. And to, say they when it's us, but she in a town, multiple times throughout the story. Which is impressive considering how short the story is. This little speech from Sai is also something that made me feel like the book doesn't actually like the genre that it's trying to pretend that it's in, and it's trying to very specifically disrespectfully pee on the Western genre and the people inside of it and the people that enjoy it. Sai is aggressive in her presentation of herself, calling everybody rubes and rewriting things for herself. Esther says that she understands bigotry and hiding things from people because she too has had to pretend to be something that she's not. Sai wants to ask what that means, but doesn't want to intrude, and yet immediately Sai cares much more about Esther because she realizes that they are both part of the oppressed class of people that have to hide their identities. This is the moment that she already fell for Esther. Quote, "The silence between them was so uncomfortable as to be painful. Sai wanting to know, but not wanting to have to find out. Esther desperate to talk about it, but also desperate to never have to talk about it again. Their eyes met, matched, and something grew up between them, fast as thunder, rolling across horizons wide, miles of sand and scrub. Something Esther didn't want to feel ever again. That freckle on Sai's lower lip put a hunger in her. Those row calluses on Sai's hands put a need in her, and there was nothing for it, and she couldn't look away, couldn't blink, couldn't breathe, even until, mercifully, Lita's voice cut right between them like a hatchet, cleaving the arm off a cactus. As they move on, Esther's watching Sai do things and being turned on by her body and the movements of everything, though Sai is mocking Esther about being on her own. Though Sai is mocking Esther about being her own person and doesn't believe that she's not brainwashed by the Sate, but that tension dissolves pretty quickly while they clean the horses and comb their hair. They're traveling along now, and Esther is thinking of Beatrice and being jealous that Lita and Bet have a relationship, the kind that Esther believes she could have had if only. But she also keeps no mementos of Beatrice. She's not really remembering Beatrice. There's not even a necklace. Bro, I put necklaces in so much stuff. Freaking even Marcella has a necklace from Tommy because it is so cute. Anyway, she keeps no mementos of Beatrice, and she's just thinking about all of the good dreams vanishing when Beatrice was hung. But it's okay, because she's already getting feelings for Sai, and she knows it, and that's gonna deal with this loneliness problem. Continuing on with the travels, literally nothing is happening, just descriptions of travel, and the character thinking poorly of herself, along with the movement. Quote, Esther let herself fall back more until she was behind the wagons. Now, she thought, we're all in order of importance. Lita and Bet in the front, and then Sai, and then those flea-bitten horses, and then the mules, and then the wagon, and then me. Why would they have her behind like the entire caravan when she's a newbie when she's a newbie city slicker who probably doesn't know how to, one, take care of herself, two, doesn't know how to warn everybody if somebody comes up from behind, and three, probably be easy to kick off the back of the line so that anybody coming up from behind in a sneak attack could just take her out easier. Whatever. They stop in the middle of the road when they come across a shack with some guys in it who could apparently be either 26 or 60. Esther doesn't know. Two young girls are standing in the doorway looking longingly at the horses. It turns out that this is the town that they were all heading for. It's a bunch of little dugout houses and huts. Again, Sai lectures Esther about the pronouns to use when they're in town. And then they go off to entertain some kids. Sai lifts this little boy onto a horse and is like, you look just like a librarian up there. And he's like, no, that's a woman's job. I'm gonna be a soldier. And this turns into Sai internally thinking about how terrible soldiers are. Later, Bet and Lita come back after meeting with the mayor. They get some old books and some pamphlets and food and bust Esther's chops that since she's with them now, she's gonna be their new bookbinder. She's gotta go and put some books together, so she climbs into the back of the trailer, and that's literally what she starts doing. Eventually, a couple of hours later, Lita comes in to check on her and tells her that she needs to be less sensitive. Then she sees that Esther was actually working on the books like they had said that she needed to, and asks her what she is doing. Lita then compliments Esther on the job of fixing the books that she's done because she has done such a good job, and she's like, where did you learn how to do this? This is excellent work. And Esther's like, I didn't learn how to do it. I just sort of figured it out. I'm getting kind of sick of this. Of course you're perfect at whatever you try to do the first time you try to do it in every single one of these books. Oh, I've never done this before, but I'm suddenly just amazing at it and figured it out, and everybody is like, incredible. Lita's like, wow, well, my bad. We thought that you were throwing a tantrum and hiding in here because we were joking with you. Sorry about that. Anyway, they go to bed, and then Esther is woken up just as Lita and Bet are exchanging goods with a couple of other women. Lita gets on her horse and rides off with the other women, putting her fist into the air. Esther realizes that she's going to be left behind if she doesn't get up right now and follow after them. Esther asks Sai about what this package is. Where is the package? And Sai says those new 4 women are the freaking package. They're what is being delivered. Now, my question is, why did they all just wake up in the middle of the night and then they were going to do this and leave, and then just leave Esther there in the middle of nowhere? Maybe it was because they were in the town and so they just planned to leave Esther in the town, but it seemed really just random. No one talked about anything going on, and nobody even really acknowledged when Esther still came along, but even then it looks like Sai has already started bonding with Esther and then didn't say anything, didn't wake Esther, and was just going to let Esther either figure it out or be left behind. Turns out that these 3 women that just joined the caravan are actually in a threesome relationship, and Esther is trying to ask questions about it, but they don't like it. Even though you'd be like, well, you want to share this around, don't you, and show that it's normal and show that it's acceptable, but then if anybody asks questions about it who's unfamiliar with it, you just get defensive and angry. It feels kind of counterproductive, but whatever, maybe that's just me thinking that. All three of these women also have an air of fighting about them without being soldiers fighting for the USA. They're just impatient at Esther for being ignorant. Quote, she tried to ask Sai questions about it, but they only replied with the impatience that was growing familiar. Why do you think that you've never seen that before? You've only read about it in stories, right? Why do you think that they had to hide the supply wagon when we rode through the Sedona checkpoint? Why do you think that is? Sai only got impatient about questions like those, questions that revealed how many things Esther had only ever read about in stories. But so then if she only read about them in stories, then they're still not censored because you've still seen them in stories. And I don't understand the hostility towards people that are ignorant because what? Propaganda ruled their life? So aren't rebels typically aware of the propaganda that is leading the mainstream? And so like as rebels, it is partially your job to break out the brainwashing that has happened and the ignorance that has happened, the institutional ignorance that has happened, but instead you just get angry because people don't know better because they've grown up under propaganda? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So maybe try to be nicer and inform people who don't know better, and then maybe you'll have more people on your side instead of trying to hang you. I mean, that's just a thought. We're told that everyone knows what bad things look like. She didn't think of herself as sheltered because the US has always been at war, but also it's vague on what's going on, what that war is, why they're suddenly, because this isn't like a Western, it's like a dystopian. So it's in the future after America has fallen. But there is literally no description of like what's took place, what this war is that's constantly ongoing, who is at war, is it an internal war, is it an external war overseas, why has it turned into this basic thing of maintaining your own law? I don't know, we don't know, nobody knows, nobody. Quote, everyone knew about those things, about the hunger and about the fear. The country was at war, seemed always to have been at war, and there wasn't a soul in valor who hadn't lost a loved one, who hadn't gone hungry on reduced rations so the troops could eat. There wasn't a soul in the entire country, as far as Esther could figure, who hadn't at some point eaten an onion for dinner when the meat ran out, who hadn't fed their babies watery formula, who hadn't learned to make rubber shoes out of worn down tire rubbers, who hadn't watched the neighbor hang for crimes against the state, an accusation that could mean anything from ration sharing to assassination to possession of the wrong pamphlet. But the longer Esther talked to Sai, the more she realized that the list of things that she'd never seen before stretched longer than the shadow cast by the desert sun. Not just things that she'd never seen, things that she'd never known possible. So again, I'm still wondering if everybody has been aware of somebody in their lives dying, of starving, of the war that's going on, then would she not still believe that women need to have a revolver, that it's not weird for women to carry a revolver for self-protection? Because they're at war constantly. It sounds even like the soldiers come in and take refuge in people's houses because it sounds like there's a civil war going on because they have insurrection states. Esther watches the women and thinks about how amazing they are. This is just telling the reader instead of showing the reader who these women are, since we just got introduced to them, but we see nothing about them. Quote, things like those same three women fearlessly laughing over a shared flask and talking about a goat farm they wanted to start up in Provo. Well, no. Guinevere and Trace laughed. Amity didn't. Esther thought at first that she was imagining things, but she started watching Amity closer and found that it was true. Amity's dark curls never bounced with laughter. Her warm brown cat eyes didn't glint once with quiet amusement. She covered her mouth when other people laughed, just the same way anyone else might if they were laughing along, but her face remained still and watchful. But she didn't seem unhappy. None of them did. Even in the moments when they were focused and working, even in the moments when they were angry with each other, under everything they did, there was a current of satisfaction. These were people who were happy with themselves. They liked themselves, not in spite of who they were, but because of who they were. It didn't make sense, not hardly. That kind of joy shouldn't have been an option for women like these ones. It was as lush as a table laid to creak with ripe fruit and crackled skinned meat and whole fat butter. It was a temptation. It was a promise. It was impossible. Cooking with Sai compliments Esther's skills, and then we get exposition that Esther was brought up to know women's jobs, including how to hide bruises but not stop them from being made by your husband, because that's just how things are. Yeah, let's just keep going on with the man hate. Everything is just bad. Sai and Esther continue talking, and she asks her about where she's from. Sai says that she's from the low northeast, where the factors were, and she learns that Lita was from the northwest, where the Proud family, a crime syndicate and terrorist family, held large swaths of land. Sai also mentions that Bet is from Central, but you don't ask about that, you don't talk about that, you don't ask about Central, period, unless you want to share your own, and then maybe somebody will say something. Esther keeps leering at Sai, and it's not even a secret because Sai calls her out on it, and Esther just pouts. She asks if they have wine to put in the stew that she's making, and everyone overhears her and is super impressed by Esther's cooking skills. Bet and Esther are going to be on cooking duty tomorrow, and so they'll see if they have anything like alcohol in town that they can put in the meal to test Esther's cooking knowledge. Esther's like, I'm not used to talking to people or sharing my ideas, and I don't know if what I just said was a good thing or a bad thing. Oh no. So she is so innocent that she doesn't even know what praise looks like when people are like, hey, that's a great idea, we're going to do that. She's like, oh shoot, did I do something bad? Please, Esther, can we just have like can we just have a female main character? You can be innocent, but like that innocent to the point of that level of ignorance? Whatever. Moving through the snow now, Sai gives Esther a blanket and pressures her to use it to stay warm. They eventually settle, make a camp, talk about nothing, and then it's a rush to pick everything up because there is a huge dust cloud on the horizon. They also hear random people with guns in the distance that they feel the need to distract. Because they're sure those people are coming towards them. So Sai and Esther decide they'll ride off toward the south to distract the men and hopefully get them to chase them so that the caravan has enough time to keep going the way they need to go. Sai reminds Esther again to call her a she around other people. With how much this comes up, you would think that it would actually affect the plot at some point. It doesn't. And also, all of the bandits that are chasing them or that are gonna show up, yeah, they're all men, of course. And the plan doesn't do anything to slow them down, so I don't really understand what the point of that plan was. And the way the scene goes down with its action between the bandits and the caravan is awkward and just it bounces around to skip through it. Quote, the confusion of the fight was intense and inescapable. Esther was overcome with a sharp intent focus. She rode between the bandits, driving them in unexpected directions and distracting their horses as Bet, Lita, and Sai picked them off with well-aimed gunshots. Esther had no idea what direction she was riding in, no idea how long the fight was taking. Bullets flew all around her, and some of them must have been flying at her, but there wasn't time to wonder which was which, because all of them were coming too close to her by miles. She rode so close to the bandits that the horses' mouths left flecks of foam on her skirts, and every moment felt like it was going to be the moment where everything went wrong, the moment where she'd wind up on her back in the dust with a hoof on her throat. She was afraid, but there was no time for her to think about how afraid she was. All she knew was that she needed to get out of the way of the librarians, and at the same time, she needed to get in the way of the bandits, and every single second that passed contained 1,000 different decisions, all at the same time. Finally, there was one bandit left. His black bandana was tight over his nose and mouth, leaving only a pair of thick white eyebrows exposed. He was pink-faced and furious, sweating hard. His wild-eyed stallion was just as lathered as he was, and the horse was beginning to slow down in spite of the frantic way his rider lashed the reins. In spite of the frantic way the rider lashed the reins at the left and right flanks. They take down everyone, no problem. Esther even helped with that last one, and well, she helped with all of them as being a distraction, and now it's time to go back for some coffee next to the fire. It turns out that the leader of that group of bandits was actually the sheriff from Sedona. Lita says that bandits and sheriffs are the same thing, and Amity takes Esther off to go cut up the sheriff and make him more appetizing for the wildlife so that the body will be disappeared. And they also grab his boots because his boots are recognizable, and they don't want him to be recognized or his body to be recognized for that township to come after them. She also apologizes to Esther that she's met death and this sort of thing so quickly. Then Amity starts bothering Esther about her feelings for Sai, and Esther doesn't want to talk about it. Amity keeps pushing it, and Esther is getting upset about it. Quote, "I should have known better than to pursue that." She says she expects whatever killed Beatrice to be chasing her, and the bill will come due someday because she loved the wrong person. Well, she's surrounded by lesbians who are fine, who have been living that life fine, but she's got the complex. Amity instead of, asking them how they made it happen or how these people were getting along, she's sure that she will be the sufferer here. Amity lectures Esther that she just doesn't know what she's talking about. Quote, "Horse shit. You only think that because you've never seen different." Esther started to reply, but Amity held up a still bloody finger saying, "Don't interrupt me, pup. You know that I'm right. You're a woman and you love people who aren't men. Is that right? And you've only ever read stories about people like that, right? You've never met one of your kind before now. Well, except for Beatrice. Ain't that so?" To me, this moment proves that everything with Esther is preying on how she's a follower, because you know that she'll do whatever you say, and she did that at home and she's doing that now. The book feels pretty much mask off at this point for what the ALA and the librarians may be doing by skirting the societal media standards using the libraries when it says, quote, "The things the librarians brought weren't subject to the textbook approval and research council since they only worked on school books, and they weren't subject to the media review committee since they mostly did film and television. The board of materials approval," she guessed. Amity nodded. "And what do you think that board wants you to believe about yourself?" She paused, but it wasn't the kind of pause that wants an answer. You might not have a happy ending coming to you, hop along, but if you come to the bad end, it won't be on the account of what kind of person you fall for. I've seen a lot more of the world than you have, and I can tell you I've seen as many good ends as bad ones for your kind of heart. Then the two of them go back to camp with the sheriff's boots. Esther says that she wants to take up Amity's offer to learn how to take a punch and shoot a gun in case something else happens, and she gets a feeling that maybe she can learn some kind of independence that she didn't have before. Back at the camp, Amity ditches Esther so that she can talk to Sai. As she's making dinner, she hears Lita and Bet muttering back and forth about something, wondering if Esther is even trustworthy. They think that she might have been the one to tell the sheriff that where they were and to lead the sheriff to them somehow, even though she was with them the whole time. I assume that they're generally usually together. Since it's a small caravan, you're going to notice when somebody is missing, but whatever, I guess. After they walk away, Esther is disturbed that they said that she is either a threat or a burden, and she is not part of the group. She is so hurt internally. She's sad, so dinner is quiet, but also they don't want to draw attention, so they're being extra quiet so their voices don't carry in the prairie. And also not lighting a fire. Oh my gosh. And so you've got nobody is talking because they don't want to draw attention. They don't light a fire because nobody wants to draw attention. And yet Amity decides right now is the time to show Esther how to fight and throw punches and shoot a gun. No, we can't talk, but yeah, we can start grunting and pow-powing things, Of course, Bet is sit down, Amity. We're not doing that right now. You're not shooting anybody. How well do these women actually know Amity? I'm wondering, where did she come from? What is the purpose of this? Is she just a stowaway to get to Utah? How did they meet her? Because at this point, we have zero understanding of even who Amity or Trace or Guinevere are and why they're there. We know that they're theoretically some sort of librarians and they need to get to Utah, but who are they? How much background does Bet have? Are these just randos that are also part of the same network, but Bet's never met them before? You really don't get a sense of anything with them. After all of that happens, it is now bedtime. Good night. The next thing is they'll be approaching the township of Endurance, and Esther is talking about the guard and lecturing herself for being kind to him, and he is flirting back. So it's just Esther talking to the township guard. She went to the township all on her own. She kind of ditched the group to go to the township, kind of to do some research and to see what's over there. Quote, "The guard handed her a day-long pass, one that marked her not as a citizen of Endurance, but as a known quantity who could stay until sundown. He winked at her, and she was flooded again with the hateful relief. This man liked her. This man would be nice to her. This man hadn't guessed any of her secrets." She's just mad that a man is flirting with her. He also gives her a pamphlet before she enters the town. These pamphlets are supposed to be given to the people on their way out because there's a wanted criminal in the area, and so he wants them to keep an eye out, but he wanted to make sure that she got it, so he gave it to her on the way in. Turns out that it is Amity Cole, the woman who is traveling with them, who is on the wanted poster, and her crime is assassination of the vice president of the Southwest Territories. You think maybe they would have run into this sooner? Somebody would have, especially, Bet and Lita. Maybe Bridget wouldn't have, but you'd think that people that are traveled, that are experienced, like Bet, Lita, and Sai, one of them may have seen something. I was going to say maybe they only just recently crossed into the territories, but they started in Arizona and they're going to Utah. So if somebody killed the Southwestern vice president, it would be all over that area. This would not be the first time that they saw posters looking for Amity. At least I would assume not. Esther returns to the camp after having been in town, and she basically gave herself heat stroke because she was out too long in the sun, didn't bring water, didn't prepare herself appropriately. So as she's back at camp, she is downing the water. Apparently, Bet and Lita didn't know that Esther was gone for hours, even though she ran off with a whole horse. Okay, so maybe they wouldn't notice the Amity posters because they can't freaking notice when one of their horses is gone either in their small little caravan of like 6 people. They just thought that she was sleeping this whole time. Now she realizes that she needs to go and make a case to Lita and Bet as to why they should trust her so that they keep her with the caravan, and she thinks that telling them who Amity really is and that she tricked them, and she thinks that telling them who Amity really is will do the trick. But she doesn't have the flyer anymore, you see, because before Esther went to town, she snuck into Sai's tent, sleeping area, whatever, stole Sai's money, and then went to town. And then when she got back, she gave Sai her money back, but also the Amity flyer was with the money. So again, we gotta convince people to trust me, but also I just ran off without telling anybody and stole money from the group. Esther goes to ask Sai for the paper again, and Sai says no fairly because Esther stole stuff from her. She says that she's impressed that Esther was able to steal from her in the first place, so she deserves to keep what she got because of it, but also she's not just gonna hand over the goods now. Why? I don't know, it's just kind of forced admiration, allowing this character to be weaker because she has a crush on the other one, and then just compliment the other one profusely. That's it. Sai sees the flyer for Amity and hands it back to Esther just as Lita and Bet are coming over. She tells them that they need to talk, and then they walk away. She tells the two of them about Amity and says that she's not sure, but she thinks that the sheriff came because the sheriff was hunting Amity. Again, they should have seen pictures of Amity in Sedona if the sheriff of Sedona was already hunting Amity, right? Apparently, Lita and Bet also had no idea that Amity was a wanted criminal, period, or anything about Amity's crimes, so they go and confront Amity about her assassination, and guess what? She pulls a gun on them, and she uses Esther as a human meat shield, because of course she does. While holding on to Esther, Amity tries to reason with Bet and Lita as to why she needs to get to Utah. She's meeting some really powerful person named Galahad, which is that a Handmaid's Tale reference? And the women eventually agree. Once they get moving again, Amity is like, I don't care about hard feelings from any of you people. I don't like any of you. Well, the only one that I like is Esther, but all the rest of you can suck it. Do the authors of this kind of content not realize that when you lift up your cushy main character above everyone else who has hardened with experience, with time, with age, it just makes everyone look like wimps whose experience doesn't matter. They're all wet behind the ears despite their experience, despite being jaded, despite being abused, despite being rebel members longer than Esther has, but Esther is still better than all of them. You know, when you write a cast of characters, you can actually have people with different experiences and skill sets and skill levels, and not demean the other ones in ways that break your world building and characters because for some reason this character has to be better than everyone else because she's the main character, and so everybody else's experience does not matter and they all suck. That is a possibility. I don't know what the impulse is to always make the main character the best at everything and everyone compliment her, but girl, this is just not good writing. Amity's now provoking everyone while they ride, and Saya's like, I hope Amity is right about you because the fight's coming whether you want it or not, and since Amity refuses to be subtle, we're gonna fight. Oh yeah, so that's another thing. So Amity got the women to agree to take her to Utah, but Amity is also like, I refuse to hide in the wagon, I refuse to not be in front, I refuse to wear a hat to shield my face, even though I am known as a wanted person for assassination all over the place. So y'all are just gonna have to, one, take me, and then two, let me basically lead because I'm not hiding who I am. Like, there is no benefit to the women taking Amity, and there's no logical reason, there's no benefit to the way that Amity is acting either, where she's just in the front making all of them, putting all of them in more danger, including herself. She is more likely to die by being at the front of the line and refusing to hide when they go through towns that are looking for her to hang her. Like, why is this? Oh, it's because it's plot armor. She doesn't need to have any sort of logic because she can just be a badass in the front of everything because nothing bad is going to happen to her because she's wearing plot armor. Gotcha. It just makes the whole thing purposeless. There are no risks, there are no stakes, there's no danger. And she's just selfish. She says, I'm totally fine with putting you all in danger as I demand that you do things for me. Okay, so then why are we here? Amity, you deserve to die. We need a good old-fashioned hanging for this woman. Just for being inconsiderate. Because all I'm seeing right now is she wants to get shot and she wants everyone else to get shot. The posse then goes to Endurance, the posse then goes to Endurance with Amity in the front. Endurance, the place that gave Esther the wanted poster to begin with. And Amity's like, yeah, I'm gonna ride in the front because I'm gonna ride in the front. Screw you guys. It's so bad. Quote, who's that you've got with you? The lookout asked, lifting his chin. Guinevere and Chase had been hidden away for a mile, and Amity was supposed to have joined them, but of course she hadn't. Something in the set of Lita's shoulders told Esther that she and Bet had accepted the fight that it would probably represent, but Bet acted like a fight was the furthest thing from her mind. They just marched into this place and let her get them into a gunfight that could ultimately end with all of them being shot or hanged. Why? There's no benefit to this. They should have tied her up and thrown her in the freaking wagon. The guard keeps telling Bet to stop as she gets closer. He needs to talk to the new recruits. She keeps coming towards him, though. No one says anything about the ladies with their hands on their pistols as they aggress upon the guard, and they have an assassin with them, an outlaw with them. When he tries to run, he trips over his own feet like this is some kind of cartoon, but he gets back up and then gets into the guard tower, and a shootout ensues. This literally skips through the showdown/shootout at the tower. Quote, later on, when Esther tried to remember the battle at Bitter Springs, her memory would produce only a few images. And obviously it's about the elegance of the librarians and the bravery of the team while they beat the law and took down everybody without a problem. It happened so fast, and Esther feels bad that she didn't even help with the shootout because she is a lame character who's not even involved in her own story, has no motivations, is not doing anything, whatever. Quote, they had all been facing an obvious but horrible choice, kill or be killed, and they had all protected each other from that harm, all of them except for her. To be honest, Lita and Bet should have just said, have Amity, we don't need her, can we collect on that money please? Because Amity clearly did not care about them. Just turn her in. There's one moment in the showdown where Esther is throwing down with one of the male guards and hates that he calls her sweetheart. He's trying to reason with her that she's not like the outlaws that she's with, but she thinks about how she cares about the librarians being like her, a lesbian, and that she doesn't care about getting along with the good people anymore. She wants to live the life she wants to live, so she unloads her gun into this poor man that did nothing wrong. Quote, she had seen a man decide that she deserved to die, and she had killed him for it. No, he was defending himself because you were attacking him and you were with an assassin. He didn't make a decision about you or your lifestyle as a librarian. But she's holding what her father did to her against this man and every man because apparently they're all the same. Esther wakes up after passing out from that event where she shot the guard, and they are on the road, and she's remembering that she killed the sheriff, and Amity is over there smiling about it because Amity is a psychopath, and Sai's like, I think people in her work have hardened up to do their job, and Esther is like, I feel like I should be hardening up too. I feel like I should be a girl boss. It looks pretty nice from the here. She's smiling, unaffected, can just kill men without thinking. Sai says that she likes Esther being normal, and they flirt some more. Also, Bet's alive and fine, so it's whatever, like everybody is fine. There are no consequences, it's fine. Once they stop into Utah, Bet gets taken care of. Esther then learns about the smuggling operation going on with the librarians and people smuggling books that are not supposed to be there in through the facilities of the library. And also, they were sneaking lesbians out of places in order to get them to safety zones. This is how Beatriz knew that there were more lesbians out in the world and that there was a lesbian paradise somewhere that she was going to try to escape with Esther to before she died. Bet and Lita decide that they're going to retire because of the damage that Bet has taken, and they're giving over the librarian job to Sai and Esther. I thought that they were civil servants. How do you just give a job over? Unless this just means the underground portion. But like, how do they have jobs with the government that they can just hand over to somebody else when they decide that they're done? Esther and Sai kiss in celebration, get excited, and Esther is not sure what all of the glances between her and Sai mean, you know, when they're doing this, when they're like, oh, I'm so hot, oh my goodness, what a hottie. But she wants to find out what being hot for somebody means. Girl, you had a girlfriend. You are not this ignorant. Stop it. Just accept it. Can we have moments where people that have spouses or have previous partners in stories where they're not this naive and they're like, oh no, I don't know what it feels like to have butterflies or to be sexually obsessed with somebody that I'm watching them brush the sweat from their brow. I don't know what it means that I feel all hot and bothered. Oh no. Did you not feel that with Beatriz? Because it's just, I just get tired of starting over like everything. Anyway, Esther wants to find out what her feelings mean because apparently she has amnesia to what feelings mean, and also wants to go around the United States and liberate lesbians so they don't have to live in fear like she did and then die like Beatriz. The end. That is this book. Congratulations. The couple of random notes that I have left over that did not go into the rest of this are, it immediately jumps into it and it's going so fast that we don't know what the librarians are or why Esther wants to be them so badly, but that's introduced at the very beginning. This book is so up its own butt about how noble and amazing and brave librarians are and the amazing goals that they're doing. It's pretty much what I expected. Like, it could have actually been worse. I've seen worse self-fellation of librarians on Twitter, but this was definitely overly applauding the heroism of librarians, and you go, There is no setting or description for any of this in here, and I know that it's a novella, but it did nothing to do the setting, to do the background, to suggest what happened to end society as we know it. There's nothing. So it just tells me the author didn't really care about the genre, didn't care about the world, didn't care about the characters. It was just about making these rebellious lesbians. It was just about making these rebellious librarians doing whatever it was they're doing and then killing a bunch of men. The story spends so much time telling the reader how important and brave and amazing the characters are without ever actually showing it. The book also makes the claim that they can't move glass around in a wagon, as if I didn't drive a wagon full of moonshine bottles just weeks ago. And then I can't get over the idea that Amity says she knows she's wanted. She's trying to get to Utah because she's got to do something with Galahad that's super, super, super duper important, but not important enough to not march right in front of sheriffs so that it doesn't start a shootout and get everybody possibly shot. Like, she's careless, fine, but like that careless? Her companions are in the back wagon. Does she not care about them at all? So this is just careless. It feels like the book feels like it doesn't care about the genre that it's in. It doesn't care about the characters. It doesn't care about building a story. It's just a power fantasy of women who are librarians, who are going around shooting people, beat everything that they come across, and ascend to girl bosshood to liberate the librarians across the United States with no care whatsoever to whatever place that they were set in. I don't know. So, yet again, it feels like another Western that was written by a modern author, a contemporary author who hates Westerns and just wants to rewrite the genre while insulting everything that makes it what it is. And not understanding the tropes or the values or the heroism that actually goes into Westerns. This ain't it, Chief. This ain't it. So that is my review of Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. I would not say any of them are upright, especially, none of them. None of them have a moral code whatsoever. But, you know, they gotta tell themselves that they're upright so they feel better about themselves. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Have you read this book? Will you read this book? What the frick is with this world building? With that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?